Well, 25 fits real easy now. I want to get it up to 30. I'd rather have a couple thousands excess than not enough. Back in 1978, when I bought my 60 Corvette, it had a quote-unquote rebuilt engine in it. Well, it was rebuilt, and I drove the car home, and I took that engine out of it and put a, oh, let me think now. Yeah, I took that engine out of it and put it in my 57 Chevy because I wanted to drive the 57 Chevy, and took off on a trip. And the engine had been running fine, but back in 78 the speed limit was 55 across the whole country, and but they didn't obey it everywhere. And running across North Dakota, I know there's a lot of air in the Speedo, but the Speedo on the 57 I kept between 90 and 95 all the way across the state. And I was running it really hard. By the time I got to the other end of the state, it was puking oil. And now let's see, what do we got for clearance here now? This should be 30. Yeah, we got 30 there. But now this ring we have to turn over. Check both sides. Well, it's a tight 30. Anyway, when I got to the other end of the state, it was puking oil. So I'm up in North Dakota. And also, it wasn't hardly running anymore. That's another story. The fuel tank story. I'll finish with this part first. Anyway, I look at a map and I figured the biggest city around to do anything would be Rapid City, South Dakota. So I bought a case of oil, looked at the map, state highway, and headed for Rapid City. Long story short, just because the name of a town is on the map out there, and this was in 78, doesn't mean there's a gas station. I get to go through Rettig, which is on the map. I don't remember if it was North Dakota or South Dakota, and all it was 2 vacant buildings. And as it was approaching dark, I was about out of gas, and I drove up a rancher's driveway and fortunately bought some gas. And I wound up making it to Rapid City. And got a motel, and then tried to decide what am I going to do, because it was just puking oil, something fierce. I don't know how it ran at all, because I had gone through probably 8 quarts of oil in, I don't know, a few hundred miles. Anyway, I'm trying to decide what to do. I was even, in 78, it wouldn't have been unusual for a Chevy dealer to work on a 57 Chevy. And they weren't able, nobody would look at it for a couple of weeks. So I decided the next best thing to do is I went to a local bar and started asking if there's anyone around who worked on cars. I want to get that one just a little looser yet. And they gave me a name of a guy with a machine shop in Box Elder, South Dakota. Long story short, I went in there and he agreed to let me work on it myself. Long story short, I went there Monday morning. I had all my toolbox along. I pulled the engine, tore it apart, and lo and behold, all the rings were broke into pieces an inch long. So I figure whoever rebuilt that engine didn't have enough end gap, and when I ran it so hard in that heat, it got hot enough that the ends hit and broke the rings. But I got there Monday morning, pulled the engine, tore it apart. He did all the machine work. I did some work on cars for him while he was boring the block and such. And I had it back together and running and left Thursday at noon. And of course I didn't come straight home. I ventured on my way all the way out to California, went to see the Salt Flats, went down through New Mexico and Arizona and back home. So I saw firsthand what happens when the rings break. Well, back to this. The clearances on this one seem good. I'm checking both sides a couple of times. Oh, that one's still a little tight. You always got to keep track here when you take them out so you know which side you're filing on. Oh, and by the way, the guy in South Dakota offered me a job, and I says, no, I got to get home. I got a good job at home. And now we're going to double check the other side again. There, now we have a solid 30 thousandths clearance. Now I'll get one more of these. Okay, let's see how this one fits. Oh, I can see it's real tight. Oh, it's at about 22 thousandths, I'd say. Now back to what I said, the gas tank story on the 57 Chevy on that trip. When I got across North Dakota, also, the engine was starting not to run too good. You know, I was losing power like I wasn't getting enough gas. And of course, it was right after I had filled the gas tank. You know, I thought maybe it was low on, you know, maybe that'd help. Anyway, the tank was full. And I get a motel. You know, that's them were the days it was a mom and pop motel, and it was just a little town that had nothing more than one self-service gas station. And anyway, at the motel, in the parking lot, I get out my tools, I crawl underneath, and I take the gas. Oh, first, you know, I did some checking. It wasn't the fuel filter, and I finally determined there's a blockage at the fuel pump. It was, I could tell it was very restricted back into the gas tank. So I crawled under the car, disconnected the line at the gas tank, and I determined the blockage was inside the tank. So that meant I had to drop the tank and take the pickup unit out of it. We don't have 30 thousandths yet. So I proceed to drop the tank, and you know, in them days it didn't have just a locking ring to hold the sending unit. It had, oh, what they call them clutch head screws, which of course I didn't have one of those to fit it. So I carefully grabbed the head of each one with the vice grips, and there's 5 of them, and I got 4 of them out. But one of them I couldn't get at very good because of the pickup tube coming out of the tank. So I carefully tried to bend that out of the way. And of course, I broke the solder where that tube goes through the plate of the pickup unit. And I did discover there was blockage in the pickup tube. There was no screen on the end of it. And it was silicone, and gas filler neck on a 57 Chevy slides into the gas tank with an O-ring, and of course I thought silicone would be a good thing to act like a lubricant and sealant, so because it was kind of tough to slide in, so it would slide in easier and seal it up, and a piece of that broke off and got sucked up the tube. Well, I got that out of the tube, but now I had the dilemma of that tube going through the mounting plate. The solder was broke. What am I going to do? So I go to the gas station, figured they'll know anybody, people in town. Again, there I also did the same thing, asked if there's someone around who works on cars or has a shop or something. And they directed me down the street to where a rancher had a shop in town. So I go walking with my pickup unit down the street a couple blocks around the corner, and I found a rancher's shop. And I come walking up to it, and I see an empty tank full of water and a couple empty half barrels floating in it. About 4 guys standing around. This is like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I knew what took place there the night before. And I'm coming in to ask for a favor. Well, they were the nicest guys. 3 of the guys said, well, they had to get going. And the other guy, he introduced himself. He's the guy who worked in the shop for the rancher. And he was more than happy to solder that tube back into the plate for the pickup unit. And then he says, wait a second, there should be a screen over the end of there. And he says, I know I got some brass screen around, and he dug through his, it was like a chest, and he came up with a piece of brass screen and made a little tube out of it, soldered it on the pickup tube, closed the end and soldered it off, so now there's a screen in it. And of course he wouldn't take anything for it. There are a lot of great people in this world. And then it turned out he grew up, he'd been out in North Dakota for most of his life, but he had grown up in Madison, only 40 miles from where I grew up. So we talked a little bit, and he sent me on my way, and like I said, he wouldn't take anything for it. So yeah, that was quite a trip. Like I think I've said before, I like telling stories. That was quite an adventure. I was gone 3.5 weeks, and I think I had 5,000 miles on my rebuilt engine by the time I got home. Oh, I forgot, on the way out there, went to Yellowstone, and it was last weekend Yellowstone National Park was open for the year, and it got snowed in there for 3 days until they got the road open, and that's why I decided to head toward California, because the first road they got open was to the west. So I thought, well, that's the direction I'm going. And it's just amazing, you get snowed in a place like that, how friendly, instantly everyone's friendly, because they're all stuck in the same situation. And because it was the last weekend they were open for the season, when you looked at the menu at the Yellowstone Lake Lodge, it isn't like you were going to order what you wanted. It's more like they were feeding you what they had left. So you didn't have to think about it a lot. I remember someone started playing the piano in the lobby. People sat around singing, just like you'd see on some TV movie. So things like that do happen in real life. At least they did for me back in '78. Well, my end gaps, I think I might do this side of this one just a little bit more in. So I hope you don't get tired of my stories, because I like telling stories. So there we got 30. I'll flip the other side. Oh, that one's still a little tight. And do that one a little bit more. Oh, I'm sure it's good now. Oh yeah. Probably got 32, but that's all right. That's loose. So that's good. So I have all the rings gapped for number 4. So thanks again for watching. I'm going to try and get the back cover on tomorrow on the back of the crankcase. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Just happened to come to mind when I was thinking about rings breaking if the ends hit. So we'll see you again. Bye.